Now I can hear the beeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, beep, beep.
Exactly.
And we're live, by the way. We just went live.
Okay.
I'll give you your customary minute to share and stuff. And for those of you who are tuning in right now, that's what we're doing. Is we're sharing via Facebook. So if you want to watch it live, you can go to facebook.com/WPSN99. You can also look it up on YouTube or Twitch under Dope and Dharma. So there you have it, kids. Good times.
There we go. I'm ready.
I just shared it too. Let's go. Are you ready?
Yeah, man. He got me in the middle of a, I'm you know how hard it is to work and watch Clint Eastwood movies at the same time?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah,
I haven't watched a Clint Eastwood movie in a long time.
I don't know about you. Well, I've seen the newer ones recently, but I
the
haven't seen the old westerns.
I
haven't seen the old westerns in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen the old westerns since I was like a kid. So, anyways, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, I'm roll it.
Shut up and sit down.
That's right. Boom. In your ear. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Dope and Dharma. This is the Dharma Time edition. And as always, he is the Dope Doctor and I am the Dharma guy. What's up, everybody? What's up with you, man? I said everybody as if they're all going to respond, but what's up with you?
What's up, Leo? Well, some of them are saying some stuff. And what's up, Maynard? See, he loves Clint Eastwood too.
There you go.
Yeah, Hang 'em High is on TV right now, so I couldn't pass it up, man. They've been playing Clint Eastwood all morning while I guess I had it on the right channel today. This Grit channel, whatever it is. Maybe it's all westerns on Grit. Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, we almost didn't have a show, right? Because you're doing some. We're gonna finally, hopefully, have a landline for you. Some plugged in internet so we can stop the freezing. So hopefully that fixes things. We'll find out what on Friday's show.
That's only at the station. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
That's only at the station. So I still don't have a landline all the way up here on the fourth floor of La Casa. You know,
right?
I mean?
No, I hear you. Well, I figure let's just jump right into it, man. It'll be probably a concise show today. So I'm trying to think how I want to word this, right? So the thing that I find interesting that I hear a lot when I'm talking to the youths of the world, and I felt the same way too when I was younger. So I don't know if it's an age thing, I don't know if it's a perspective thing, probably a little bit of both. But anyways, it's the respect, right? This word respect, nobody, I get no respect. Rodney Dangerfield, by the way, for those of you who are too young to get that reference. I want to talk about it.
Was that your best Rodney Dangerfield, by the way? Just
probably
curious.
Not. That was my impromptu one.
I was gonna say, I bet you could do better than that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't planning on doing it. It happened. I felt it, and I went with it.
Okay.
Anyways, no. So I don't know. I want to talk about it because talking to the kids, right? They use this disrespect thing as like a justification for some of them. Like, yes, I said these two Utes. They use disrespect as like a justification to do so many things, right?
Right.
It's like a justification to be really mean, really rude, very retaliatory, and kind of just forget who you are, who you're trying to be sometimes in the name of disrespect. And so I kind of just want to talk about that today.
Okay.
Like, what is it? Is it earned? Is it given? That kind of stuff. So I guess to start out with, what is it, right? Like, what would you define? I know the dictionary version of it, but what would you define respect as?
Well, that's a great question because I'm definitely no Webster, man. But the way I would define respect is something you give to others, or something that is given to you, which allows your voice, your opinion, and however you are to be what it is. In other words, lack of, minus the judgment, minus the attack, minus the argument. It's just allowing someone to be exactly who they are. That's the type of respect, the way I heard you just say it. Now, I think there's another type of respect as well, is where you allow situations to be what they are, and you do what is expected of you to do in those situations based on the rules, regulations, or traditions of that something. So to me, it's two different things: one towards the people and one towards things.
Right. Well, so I didn't really know how to define this either when I first started looking into it.
Mhm.
I found the best one. Oh, Leo Ryan's on Facebook commented, respect, find out what it means. Nice. Aretha Franklin, the one and only. No, so this is the definition that I found
No,
that
that's not all he said. That wasn't all on Aretha Franklin.
it was it not it is one of the free things we can give every day, no cost. Okay. I thought he was just going to continue the chorus line.
So I thought that's why I stopped you.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have stopped you.
So the definition that I found that I liked the most was a feeling of admiration towards someone's virtues or achievements and expressing that admiration through words and actions. And then it goes on to say that the English word comes from the Latin respectrum, meaning to look again or to look more carefully. So that's actually what the word means, like the etymology of the word, I guess, to look more carefully. And I like that one because the thing that I had a conversation earlier with my mother about this. We were talking. I just asked her if she had any immediate thoughts, and she immediately chimed in with some ideas that she had of what respect was and what being disrespectful was. And me being who I am, I immediately took the devil's advocate approach. I was like, well, what if? And I think that's the problem, right? Is there's very few universal ideas of what respect is. Because, like, for example, let's say you come from a family that's very loud, very boisterous, and that's kind of how you get hurt. That's just commonplace. That's how you talk.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're hanging around somebody who comes from a much more quiet family, much more reserved, you speaking loud, I can see how they would consider that being disrespectful, right? Like, oh, why are you getting loud with me? And the other person thinking, well, I'm not. What do you mean I'm not getting loud? I'm just talking.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've had different friends in my life, different guy acquaintances that some groups will like roast one another, like put down each other, crack on one another,
Right.
to whereas another group uplifts one another, right? Like you and I will bust each other's balls sometimes, but it's usually done in good nature.
Right.
We more so uplift one another in our roasting, if you will. To whereas I've had friends when I was younger where our roasting was like straight up put downs, like just like harsh stuff. And somehow I grew out of that. And I got with other friends that we do things differently. However, if you come from like that circle and you try to do that to a different circle, that new circle might think of that as disrespect, even though in your mind, like, what do you mean? That's how I'm showing my appreciation,
Yeah.
And so I think that is part of the problem is there doesn't seem to be any universal, this is respect. I think we all kind of define that for ourselves. And then the problem with that is when we define it for ourselves and we view respect as transactional, and I know this is where you come from. When we view respect as transactional, I mean, you do this, then I give you respect, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're constantly vigilant and on the lookout for ways that somebody's disrespecting us, right? Like that leash gets really, really short, especially depending on who we're interacting with. And so I don't like the transactional nature of it. And I don't like the fact that we constantly walk around looking for disrespect or what have you. There's been so many instances where, like, when I was younger, I saw the disrespect. Now that I'm older, I look back. The two things that come into my mind was, number one, I didn't respect them first, so how could I expect them to respect me? And number two,
Right.
they might not have seen it as disrespect, even though I did. And so that, for me, moving forward, helps me. I keep that in the back of my mind whenever I'm talking to people. I try to do my best to play devil's advocate. If my initial thought is, wow, that was disrespectful, I try to ask. I inquire. Like, I ask some more questions to figure out if it was intentional or if it was unintentional. Because to me, it matters. If it's an unintentional disrespect, I don't really care about those. Like, I get it. It's unintentional. You didn't realize what you were stepping on. It's the intentional ones that ruffle my feathers a little bit more. It's the intentional ones that take more skill for me to handle correctly, I guess. Um, but I do love. So I guess let's go into the transactional nature of it, because you said many times on all of our different shows that you don't see it as a transactional thing. So can you expand on that a little bit for everybody who hasn't heard your beautiful take on it?
I mean, I just think that respect is a gift that I give people. I don't think you have to earn my respect at all. I think that's something that I give you as a gift. I mean, why wouldn't I give that to you? I mean, you're a human. I feel like you deserve it. I
Right.
feel like you're just as deserving to have your views and opinions as I am. So the reason I took that stance early on is because I found myself very frustrated as a young man, feeling like you had to give it to me. Like I'm not like I
Right.
found myself making an excuse like I don't respect you because you don't respect me.
Yep.
So when I found myself saying that or thinking that, and then hearing someone else do that and say that, it was like, well, wait a minute. If everybody's waiting for the other person to do it first, then nobody's doing it. And I'm not a follower, and I don't like anything about following. I like either leading
Right.
or co-leading. I feel like in my friend group that I had growing up, we were like all co-leaders. I don't feel like there was a one defined leader in
Right.
my youth, even though one person may have had more money, one person may have had more the bigger vehicle, so they're always driving it. One person may have had all the drugs, one person may have had the party house. It didn't
Right.
matter. A lot of times I had all those things, but I still wasn't the defined leader. We were all co-leaders, and so we respected each other's, I guess, position within our group, within our friend group. Um, so that's where I got it from. Whereas, I think in the family where I was raised, it was based on position of birth, and I'm fine with that. Like my brother's child one, I'm child two, which to me that's what it defines me as a number two rather than number one. And I'm not saying I'm a shit, maybe I am, but I'm a number two rather than a number one. But the point is that I think that if we all give it as a gift to somebody else, it'll be a lot easier to um if you want to take it back, you take it back based on whether you feel like they're continuing to deserve it or earn it. But if you wait for them to earn it or deserve it before you give it, then you are a problem. You are part of the social problem, which we call aggression, which we call division, which we call disrespect. So that's my point.
Yeah. I mean, when you were talking, I was thinking to myself: is there a difference between trust and respect? Because I think there is, right? I think that maybe that's part of the problem is we confuse two different things. Like I respect people, but I don't know
Mhm.
if I trust them immediately, right? Like I have a certain
Right.
baseline of trust, but like I'm not going to trust you with my vulnerabilities right away, kind of a thing. I think that's what I think that's the difference, right? Because there is a respect to me, like the way I show my respect, the way I view it is you have just as much right to exist in this world as I do. I'm obviously biased to my perspective, but I'm aware. I have enough humility to know that my perspective is not the only one, and it's probably not even right all the time. Like I know that, and so I try to operate under that basis. Like I try to operate under the
Mhm.
guise of your respect is equally as valid, and so
Right.
I think that's what gets a lot of people in trouble. What's up?
I wanted to answer that, what you said.
Yeah, yeah.
What did
Go
you
ahead.
say? That it's the same as what?
Is there a difference between trust and respect?
Um, and I'm pretty sure I've shared this with you as well. I'm not sure because my memory really sucks because I had this thing, Trent, I had this thing.
Yeah.
But trust to me is another thing that I give you. Now,
Right.
now there's a variation on the trust one that there's not on the respect thing. The variation on the trust thing is that when I say that, I'm not trusting you with my money. I'm not trusting you with the keys to my home. I'm not trusting you with my vehicle. But as far as the way I view trust, which is I allow you to be, again, very similar to respect. I allow you to be who you are, and I allow you to be who you are based on that. Meaning, if you're a thief, I trust that you're going to stay a thief. If you're a liar, I trust that you stay a liar. You know what I mean? So the point is that uh, you don't have to earn my trust either. That's another thing that I give to you freely on a very small scale, but I give it to you.
Right.
And if you violate that, well, then that just says I'm not going to offer more to you. Whereas
Yeah.
if you do well with that, then I find myself giving you more and more and more. And now this is not this respecting and this trust thing is no longer something conscious, by the way, Trinity. This is just how I behave. I'm
Right.
explaining to you just how I am and how I behave. It's no longer conscious. It was conscious early on when I was trying to not be as angry and therefore not as volatile out there. Because what I found is that the common denominator in all the problems out there was me. So I looked for my responsibility in those things so that I can live a more peaceful life. And so these are two things that I found very important, which is respecting other people, respecting who they are and how they are, and also trusting them instead of always thinking everybody had another game, because I was living
Right.
a double life and because I was not trustworthy in many ways, I felt that others weren't. And all I was doing was projecting my disrespect to others and projecting my distrust of others. And therefore, just not really allowing people to bond to me in a meaningful way. And connectivity is key. We say it all the time here on this show and our other
Yep.
shows. Since connectivity is key, and if you come off disrespecting others or waiting for them to respect you, or distrusting others and waiting for them to trust you or to earn it, however that is, I don't know what manual you walk around with saying, here, read this, do this, and then I'll respect you and trust you. But if you're always going to create that division amongst you, then the only people you tend to have that to are the people you grew up with, and then that's it. You'll never develop others out there, or never allow a stranger to get closer. And I just thought that was robbing me of a lot of good interactions and a lot of good people. So those are my takes on that as well.
Well, you know what really changed my outlook on respect, though, was for me when I stumbled into spirituality and I started to think or hearing about expectations.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the wake up call for me. That was the thing that was the catalyst that brought me
Mm-hmm.
to it. Because at the end of the day, all respect kind of really boils down to is somebody either meeting or not meeting your expectations. Right? You have an expectation of how this situation is going to play out or what their behavior is going to do, whatever it is. They didn't do what you thought that they should have done, and then you get upset. Sometimes that's rightfully so. Like I expect when I meet somebody for them not to punch me in the face. And in those drastic situations, obviously, it works out. But like if you expect somebody to care about something the way that you care about it, or view it the way that you view it, or
Mm-hmm.
respond to something the way you would respond to it, like basically, I read a quote somewhere: "Stop expecting you from other people."
Exactly. That's a
Um,
great quote, by the way.
yeah, and I like that because at the end of the day, that's what woke me up with respect was I was expecting me from other people. I was expecting
Mm-hmm.
my methodology, my outlook, my response to things from other people. Um, doesn't mean that I don't still do that. Like I still want certain things like from my family, my kids and stuff. But I don't get as upset, right? Like it doesn't bother me as much. What I've learned to do now is in my old age here is I speak up, right? Like
Right. Right.
one time my daughter was doing something, and she did something. I don't remember what it was. It doesn't really matter, but she did something, and I pulled her to the side. I was like, I view that as kind of disrespectful, and this is why. Like I
Mm.
explained it to her, and I got her take on it, and it was a misunderstanding. She didn't realize that I was going to take it that way, and I didn't realize what she was thinking at the time, and that situation has never occurred again. And that's how I choose to handle things now. Is like, so I still have my expectations. I think as human beings, we're never going to get rid of those, as much as we try. I haven't reached that point in my life yet where I've achieved it. But what I have done is I try to keep in the back of my mind that those are my expectations, and
Yeah.
some are reasonable for me, and some aren't. Right? Like it might be
Mm-hmm.
unreasonable to expect a certain thing from somebody else when you don't know their lineage, right? Like where they come from, what they've
Right.
learned, what this whole because that was the other thing that used to bother me a lot when people would talk about this disrespectful thing, and I'm sure you've heard it a million times before, and all the people you've spoken with,
Mm-hmm.
they should have known, right? Well, they should have known. I remember the first time somebody said that to me. I can't remember if it was in one of the classes or one of the groups, but I
Mm.
was asking, I was like, "Well, why are you so upset? Like, why did that bother you so much?" Well, they should have known.
Right.
My first question was like, "Well, why? Like, why should they have known? Like, do you know their entire life history? Do you know everything that they've been through? Do you know
Right.
that anybody's ever sat them down and taught them that? You're assuming that, but once again, you're asking for you from them. You're asking for yourself from
Right.
them. Like, you know what you've been through that taught you that lesson because you didn't come out, you weren't birthed with that knowledge. You went through
Mm-hmm.
some sort of an experience that where it taught you that lesson. You've taken it with you. How do you know that that other person has achieved that same, epiphany, if you will? You
Right.
don't. And so that like I don't that and that to me I think was what boils down to with respect is this idea of I have formulated already how this situation should unfold. And if you adhere to that, we're good. If you don't adhere to that, I'm going to potentially think that that's disrespectful. And I think that the more we are aware of that, we start to realize it's like not their job to live up to your expectations. It just isn't. And that's a hard thing to wrap your head around, right? Like, that's part of how we cause our suffering anyways, as people, is these expectations. Whereas in the meeting rooms, what do they call it? Expectations lead to resentments,
Premeditated
right?
resentments.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, that's kind of what disrespect, if you will, is a resentment towards the way that person treated you. And it revolves back to, well, why were you expecting differently? That doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries, right? We all have boundaries. We all set certain things that we deem acceptable or not.
Right.
But if I just met you and you crossed what I feel to be a line, I'm not going to go off as if you already knew that line existed. I'm instead going to inquire why you crossed that, what your mindset was. And if it was nefarious, then I'm going to let you know that's unacceptable. So if you want to continue to interact with me, then you're going to have to go about it a different way. But if I find out that it was unintentional, then it's kind of hard to get mad at somebody whose story you know. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I like what you said right there, that one quote, and I think that's why it was written right there, to stop expecting you from other people. Because not only do you hear people say they should have known better, but you also hear them say a lot of times, I would never do it that way, or I would never say it that way. And then so if you're an individual that finds yourself often upset and saying that, I would never talk like that, I would never say that, I would never behave that way, then you are one of the people that are expecting you from other people. And that can cause your own personal suffering. That can cause your own personal discomfort in your life. And that's something that's under your control. No, you can't control that person's behaving like a jackass, in your opinion. You can't stop that. You can't prevent that. But what you can prevent is your expectation that they're going to behave and act exactly like you. And I think that's a really mature viewpoint. And I think all of us may falter at times. I mean, there may be some Gandhis out there that could do it really well, but I'm not one of them.
Me either. And I haven't met one either.
Yeah, but I do, at least if I find myself thinking that sentence or saying that sentence out loud, I take issue with it. If not at the moment, because I might be emotionally charged at the moment, later on when I rethink it or process through it, if that thought is in my head, I would never act like that, and that's why I'm frustrated. I would never say that, and that's why I'm frustrated. Then I kind of back off. Now, that being said, there are certain people that you've given positions to, and you have certain desires in that position, but I think you need to explain that position to other people. So, for instance, in a relationship, if in a relationship you picked a person, a certain reason why, and therefore you want a certain, a style of conversation back to you, and that's not happening, then you need to explain that. Say, this actually makes me feel very uncomfortable, and this is why it makes me feel uncomfortable. This actually frustrates me when you talk like this to me. Let me explain to you why. Like, for instance, a common one in relationships is when a person says "you never" or "you always." If you're in a relationship conversation, the person's saying "you never" and "you always," and it really just bugs the crap out of you. That's a conversation you need to have calm, like when everybody's feeling good, because if you're having it at that moment, it never goes anywhere. I mean, having conversations with somebody that their voices is going higher, the common trick in counseling is you go lower. You know what I mean? You get lower. So they have to like calm down in order to hear you. But I violate that one all the time, because it's like I like to be the loudest one as well. You know what I mean? So if the voice goes loud to me, then I want to, you're not allowed to be louder than me. Yeah. So, but later on when I'm processing, I'm thinking, geez, I just played this game, man. I played the game, and so both people become wrong. Because you're each expecting the other person to eventually stop from going higher and going, oh, you're right. Let me back off. And that clearly is a rarity. That is as rare as me going in the backyard and striking gold, oil, or finding a blood diamond.
Yeah, exactly. I think my mother was telling me a story. So she used to work in the jails, for those of you who don't know. And she said the same thing that you were saying was, it always amazed her on how frequently she would see like fights and stuff between inmates. And when you talk to them, they were like, "Oh, well, he disrespected me," blah blah blah. And her answer was like, "Well, but did you do anything to respect him?" And their answer, like, it always like freaked them out. They didn't know how to answer it. And that's the thing, is they don't understand that you got to give it to get it, kind of a thing, right? What's Leo saying? Rules to follow.
He's saying exactly what I was saying.
If someone you're talking to get louder, speak. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
I don't do well at that one all the time. I fail at that one sometimes.
I do it when I'm not emotionally charged. Like you know who I do it real well. I do it really well with my kids. When my kids will go low, but to me that's a technique of just staying calm, so they can't say that I freak out or I'm aggressive. Because when they were younger, they would say you're aggressive, and I'd be like, oh really? Okay, so I make a plan never to show them the aggression. But I fail at it with Dana. Dana goes louder than
Sure, she's got that unique button pushing wand.
Oh yeah,
my wife has one too.
They all exist. She knows I can have my button underneath my armpit, and she knows where it is.
Yeah, but yeah, I think I don't know. For me, it was just it's so weird because as I've gotten older and further in my spiritual practice, man, yeah, dude, like respect was always like on my top of my list. Like it meant so much to me. But now as I've gotten older, I don't really care. Right? Like it's weird on how little I think about respect these days, and if somebody's showing it to me or whatever. And I think some of that is I'm surrounded with people who don't blatantly do those kinds of things anymore. But I also think it's my perspective has changed. I've kind of come to a different viewpoint on it. But if you're listening to this, I think that is the key to take away is if you're feeling disrespected, first and foremost, have you done anything to respect that person? And secondly, is it really a universal thing, or is it just something maybe you're misreading? Is it something that your expectations were a little out of whack, right? I mean, because we've all run into that. I mean, they're all kind of connected, right? When you start talking about perspective and judgment, they're all kind of interweaved and interconnected with one another. But perspective, like they have it, man, and it means just the same, right? It's like when I watch my kids fight. My two little ones bicker. Oh my God, they bicker so much, bro. It's summertime, and so I got them all the time now, and they fight. Yesterday they were fighting over who can use the stool. Right? Here's an example. They wanted to get a bowl out. I let them make their food or whatever. So they get a bowl. They want to get a bowl out, but they can't reach the top shelf because they're you're young and they're little. So my son is standing directly in front of where the bowls are, and my daughter goes and gets the stool and puts it down. So then here's where the conflict happens. Here's where the disrespect happens. My son is thinking, well, since I'm already standing here, I'll step on the stool when you brought it. My daughter's thinking, well, I brought the stool, so I'm going to stand on it, which is weird, mind you, because as they get older, they're both going to get lazier, and neither one of them wants to get the bowl. So they're going to fight over who has to get it, but just in reverse, right? And so for me, like it irritated me listening to them fight over such a stupid little thing. But that's kind of what it was. He felt disrespected because, he was already in his mind, logically, I'm already here. You're going to put it there. But that's not how her mind worked. Her mind worked, well, I'm just going to go get the stool and put it down and I'll do it. And then, so the two of them fighting, they both felt disrespected by the other. When all actuality, it was just two different perspectives that just didn't align with one another. And it could have been very easily solved. Sad part is they are 11 and 12. I see that same thing play out with grown people, 30, 40, 50 years old. Yeah. And so you would think we outgrow it or we learn better, but no, without intentional work, you're not going to just outgrow it. It's not going to just go away. And I think that's part of all of our messages, right? With everything that we do is intentional work. We got to be intentional with how we go about things. You don't just do, because if you do, you're going to go back to your instincts, the lizard brain, and it's going to be very reactive, very fight or flight, very, survivalistic. And that's not typically good for interpersonal relationships.
Right.
It's the whole, I'm going to hit you back kind of a thing. So for me, I think respect, that's just, as I've gotten older, man, that's the thing I got to admit, I didn't always have the give it to get it idea. At least consciously. I think I always subconsciously did that. My mom kind of raised me in a certain way to respect people, not to quote unquote respect my elders per se, but I try to do I give a baseline respect of human beings. You're a human being, so I'm not going to get I'm not going to treat you in a horrible way. I'm not going to treat you with anything but kindness unless you give me a reason not to, kind of a thing. That's how I approached everything. And so I guess by definition, you could say that that's a form of respect. So I was always just naturally giving it to people. Having said that, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less reactive. I know when I was younger, though, yeah, the first sign, once again, that you didn't meet my expectations, I immediately jumped on that disrespect train really quick. But not as much anymore. Obviously, my expectations. I expect people to be who they are, like you said. I expect a table to be a table, and a chair to be a chair.
Yeah.
Like if you're a loud, obnoxious, kind of annoying person, I kind of expect you to be that way. I don't think it's a me thing. I think that's just who you've chosen to be in your life. And for some people, that might not be loud, obnoxious, annoying. For some people, that's just they like it. For me personally, I just don't mesh well with it. But I'm not gonna get mad at you for living your best life. You do your thing.
No, people will blame their wherever they come from for that, right? Like they'll say, "Oh, I'm Italian," or "I'm from New York," or you'll hear people say that's how we are in this city or that city, as if there's nobody in that city or that state that is any different. Look, I'm sure there are some regional things that we all get used to, which is true. There's some regional things in the South and the North and the East and the West and all that stuff. I'm not saying those things don't exist, but when you give them as an excuse rather than just saying that's who I am, that's different. But you have to be okay with that. I mean, if you're okay with who you are, then good. You're okay with who you are. But then at least understand that other people may not be as okay with that. Here's where I take issue with it, Trinity. Where I have a problem with it is that we're at a point, for whatever reason. And everybody has their opinion of why we're here, not just as a country, but as a world. This is not just a country thing. I know people love to crap on this country as if it's only about this country. It's worldwide, where respect only seems to be wanted one way right now. Whereas if you're in a position of power or authority, for some reason, you're not permitted or allowed to even be respected. Because if you are perceived to have gotten that power illegitimately or that authority illegitimately, then you deserve to be disrespected. And the respect has to come to me on this side because I am not in a position of power, or historically I have not felt respected as a people or a population. So I think that is a problem to me, and I'm going to explain some reasons why. And I'm not going to go into political mode yet unless we go there. But I could say, like, you ever watch that show 90 Days?
Which one?
90 Day Fiance.
90. No, I've seen.
I think I brought it up a couple times on this show.
My wife watches it a lot, but I've seen bits and pieces.
There's a lot of you would like it because you're a social. You like what I like. You like the social messaging, or the people watching aspect of social messaging. And so in there, a lot of times you will see individuals of certain faiths get upset with the person of the other faith or the other belief system for not respecting their faith. But the whole time while they're doing it, they're actually actively disrespecting the initial person's faith. Not knowing is not a form of disrespect, by the way. If a person does not know how you think, see your traditions, that's not a sign of disrespect. They just don't know. For instance, handing someone money rather than putting it on the counter and allowing you to pick it up money. As a matter of fact, if you'd be handing me money and put it on the counter rather than give it to me, if I didn't know that in certain cultures it is disrespectful to actually hand it to me, instead it's put down on the counter, I would think you're disrespecting by not putting it in my hand. So there's a lot of cultural things like that. But when people take position as if only my faith beliefs and only my religious beliefs or only my country's beliefs or only my language beliefs have to be respected, and yours, because you're in a position of power or because you're American, you should not, you don't deserve that same level of respect. I find that problematic. As equally as I find problematic as when, and I used to hear it a lot as a kid, because I have family members that never learned to speak English in this country. And so when I would hear, if you're going to be in this country, you got to learn to speak English. I'm thinking, well, actually, you don't have to. Number one, there's no language in the United States. There's no defined. We speak multiple languages in this country. And if you live in certain pockets of this country, you don't ever have to learn another language. I mean,
South Miami, baby.
Brother, I've lived in pockets in this country where you are just fine, never, ever, ever embracing another language or another bit of a culture. There is a small cultural difference because of availability and some influence. But since my family comes from the northern part of Mexico and from Puerto Rico, which is an Americanized Latino country, those things are already kind of there. They're small already, Americanized. But as soon as you cross that border into El Paso, there's some massive changes. As soon as a Puerto Rican goes into New York or Florida, there's some massive changes. Now, when you go back, you see them and they're very obvious. So I guess what I'm saying is, no, you could live somewhere without speaking a certain language. You could exist somewhere in embracing your particular faith and your religion, but don't expect everybody to treat you a certain way just because you're that religion, that culture, or that language. That's not the way it's going to work, because you're not doing it either. You know where you see it a lot, Trinity? Matter of fact, I'll give you one that you see it a lot. People that absolutely are like anti-Christian, and I'm not a Christian, but I have found myself defending Christians more and more in the last 10 years than ever before, because of the complete disrespect and attack that I see them get. Now, I'm not saying that Christians have always been innocent in their history, but I see a hell of a lot more evidence of people attacking a Christian and their beliefs and making fun of their beliefs and their thought processes than any other culture out there. I see defense of Muslim religion. I see defense of Jewish religion. I see defense of the absence of religion. But I do not see people defend Christians at all, constantly attacking them. The only people I see defending Christians are Christians. Yet I do see people that are not Christian or not even of any religion defend Jewish people or defend Muslims or other faith. So why the attack on Christians? Because of historical value? Because of what you perceive about them? I just think that is a form of people disrespecting others for no reason other than your personal stuff. And that's your personal hatred. That means you're just a hateful person, or you were disrespected maybe when you were a little child or whatever, or you perceive something that they're saying to be disrespectful towards you. Therefore, you feel validated in being disrespectful or hateful towards them, which I just find that very immature. It's a poor way to teach your children. I think it's a poor way to teach your children.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying at the very top of the show too, and that is, respect. There's no universal one, right? Like, have you ever been driving?
Correct.
Have you ever been driving down the street and you see the speed limit and it's say like 50?
No, I've never seen the
and
sign.
then and then you go forward like maybe 100 feet, and now it's like 45.
Right.
Like within like literally like 100 feet, it'll drop down. If you're not specifically paying attention, you're not going to catch the change. And so if if a cop was sitting right on the other side of the other sign and you pass through it and you didn't see it and he gives you a ticket, you're going to get kind of frustrated, because you're going to be like, well, I didn't even know, man. Like, you're giving me a ticket. And literally I looked away for like a second to make sure there's no car going to hit me, and I missed the sign. How did I know right when it transitioned, kind of a thing, right? I feel respect kind of works the same way, right? Is we have like this fluidity, right? It's almost like the line that has been drawn oftentimes with like what is considered harassment versus flirting type of thing. Kind of depends on who you're talking to, right? So I feel like the respecting is the same way, because even each individual, we have different levels of respect versus like other people, right? What I would deem as disrespect from you is different than like a random stranger at Walmart or another family member, like my kids, or and so it's like this really sensitive topic that we need to be aware of, that we're sensitive, if that makes sense. Like, I'm aware I have sensitivities when it comes to how I'm being spoken to or behaved with. And that's a me thing. That's not a them thing. So I need to make sure that, all right, maybe I'm a little bit, and it's okay to express that. Like, I'm sensitive when it comes to my wife. My wife can hurt my feelings. There's some things that my wife can say to me, and it has said to me, that stings. And it's blatantly disrespectful. It's my wife, like, she's going to get away with certain things because I'm 100% positive I've done the same to her. But it stings a little bit less, but there's an agreement between us where we come back, right? But I don't have that same agreement with like my neighbor. And so if my neighbor would say something to me like that, my response wouldn't be as forthright, right? Like, and I think that's kind of the problem, is there's no universal standard of respect. And so we have to stop walking around like there is one. We have to admit that it's a very gray area and it's fluid. It's like,
Mhm.
when you were talking earlier is what made me think of it when you were talking about cultural things, right? Like, growing up in like where like the machismo male kind of bravado, if you will,
Right.
the idea of another grown man coming and hugging and kissing my wife right in front of me would be like, yo, that's disrespectful.
Right.
However, I have a lot of Spanish friends, and that's just kind of what they do. They give a little kiss on the cheek when they see one another. That's just part of the deal
Right.
here. It's not disrespectful. It's not meant to be rude. It's just kind of their cultural. That's how they do things. But
Mhm.
that's the thing is what I feel the same. Well, nowadays it's kind of universal, I guess. But there was a time period where it was
Mhm.
mostly just Spanish people. So if it was a non-Spanish person coming to do it, you'd be like, whoa, like that's not part of your culture. What do you do? And that's what I mean. It's like it's so fluid, right? Like what we deem disrespectful from this person is different from this person. Is at the time how am I feeling today? Like, am I especially sensitive today? Am I
Yeah.
already angry about something else? Am I looking
No.
for disrespect? You know,
Right.
is it what culture? It's such a complex issue. So we have to treat it that way, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Stop
Yeah.
treating it like it's this black and white universal thing that we're all given a list of disrespectful things from birth and we all have to adhere to the same one. Stop
Yeah.
behaving that way. Behave
Yeah.
like it's this really complicated, complex thing that deserves a little bit of leeway. Now,
Right.
I'm not saying not to have boundaries. If somebody comes up and like spits on me, that's a problem. There's no other way to interpret that. Like, I'm not talking about those blatant things because I know there's at least one person with some crazy blatant, well, what if the blatant ones we all get. I'm talking about the 98% of the things we deal with that we consider disrespect throughout the day. Because
Right.
if we're honest, that 2% is only like 2%. Like, it doesn't. When was the
Mhm.
last time something like that even happened to you?
Yeah.
What I'm talking about is the perceived slights that we see
Right.
all day long from other people. Some we act on, some we don't. But at the end of the day, that creates like an energy, and it's all up here. It's not them, it's you. It's the way you perceived what just happened and how you're dealing with it. And
Right.
so I would like, if I was to give everybody just one thing to walk away with this show, is just that start treating it with the respect that it deserves, right? Respect. How about that? Like, respect the idea that it's much more complex, much more fluid, and much more dependent than we think it is.
Yeah. Much more. And you know what? The with everything that you were saying there, there's individuals out there that are still viewing it from their own viewpoint. Remember, this is your way may not be right, but it's right to you. And that's
Yeah.
okay that it's right for you. But that means it may not be right for me. And the same way you want me to adapt to what's right for you, the angrier you get about me not doing that means that you're not adapting for what's right for me. Compromise is a lost art. It really is.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be said in compromise. And I think the compromise is, what was my motive? If I offended you or if I bothered you, uh, was my motive to offend you or bother you? And I think motives are important. Here's where motives are how we know motives are important. For instance, in murder, you will still be punished. You commit murder, you're still punished. You can't go to the judge and go, yeah, but I didn't intend for that person to die. Yeah, you know, but he still died. Therefore, you're still going down for murder. However, because your intent was different or your motive was different, it'll be a lesser degree of murder. So does that make sense? So the
Yeah,
ultimate
manslaughter.
offense, exactly, the ultimate offense is still there. So there's still a consequence to that offense, but there's varying of degrees of consequence based on motive and intention. But in communication with other people, sometimes we don't offer the other person a time to even explain themselves because the way we ask for the explanation is aggressive or volatile in nature,
Yeah.
or you went 0 to 100 real quick, which I used to. There's a very bad incident that always comes to my mind in this, and there's really no way to make amends for this incident, but the people that were in that vehicle that may watch this or listen to this know this incident very well. We were in California. We were hanging out, me and several friends. We were driving, and maybe we got too close to a guy riding his bike. I don't know. You know how bikes are often on the road.
Yeah.
We were hanging out, and this guy,
You
and
talking
he
about
gets, and
bicycles or bikes as in motorcycles?
bicycle, yeah, bicycle, and we heard the guy
Bicicleta?
go, effing wetbacks, and we're like,
Whoa.
what? So turn the car around, and when we turned the car around, I had one of those those locks that go from your brake or your gas to the wheel to lock the car in place. You know, when you get out of your car, it's a piece of metal that you put from your, so that if someone does break into your vehicle, they can't steal your vehicle because it has this lock on it.
Yeah.
So I handed it over to my boy, and I'm not going to say his name because he'll watch this, and you know, he lives a completely different life as well, and it's for him to say whether he did it or not. That's on him. But I handed it to him, and I said, "All right, man, I'm gonna drive right by him. You get the dude." And we drove by really slowly, and caught up to him, and my boy would reach out the window, and this just smacked the crap out of this guy, man, on this vehicle. We felt completely justified. We felt proud of ourselves. He disrespected us. He called us a wetback, all that stuff. Now, I think about that moment to this day because that should have never gotten to that level. He has the right to think of us in any certain way he wants to. I have the right to just say it's laughable, brother. You have to live the life of a racist. You have to live the life of that kind of problem, not me. And just let him go about his business. But I used to have to feel like the police of the world, or, you know, citizens arrest, you know, if you know that reference.
Sure.
But it was constantly policing other people for what I found disrespectful to me or disrespectful to others, and constantly have to jump in. Now, I am still a person that jumps in certain times where I still feel it's disrespectful to other people. However, it's gotten so much better.
You're not hitting anybody in the head with a lock?
Not, definitely not hitting it. But I don't think it hit his head, in all fairness. It hit his, because it was the thump is like a back. It was a back hit. But that doesn't make it any better. The guy is probably still paralyzed to this very day because the boy that did it is completely steroid jacked out. You know, so that guy was definitely hurt. But the point is that the when you're out there and you are constantly expecting people to behave just like you said earlier, and you expect that there's this universal rule, like you said, this universal rule of respect. There is no universal rule of disrespect.
Nope.
You know, the way you would eyeball, you know, here's one I used to say all the time, because if you're in a very Mexican area and you eyeball, and you know, and you go down, that's cool, just go down. But if you go like, "What's up?" and I don't know you, I might take that as, "What's up with you?" You know, if you go up like that, I might take that like, "Oh, you know, ¿qué puedes decir?" No, man. Like, if you're not my friend, you can't be doing that. You just, you know, like, you go down like, it's okay. Órale. You know what I mean? So there's a way in certain neighborhoods that you behave in certain act, man. There was a store I couldn't even go into in Whittier when I lived in Whittier in LA, where because I lived with a black dude and a white dude, they didn't even want me going in that little store, man. This little gang would sit outside. I called them the Cabbage Patch Kids because I don't remember their name of the gang, but the gang was very similar to the word Cabbage Patch Kids. So I was like, we can't even go into that store because they'd be like, you live with a mayate and a white boy, bro. You can't come here, you know? And it was like, you know, what kind of stuff is that? But because it was disrespectful to them. And you know what? That was really more their neighborhood than it was my neighborhood. And so I just had to respect that. And constantly there's adjustments to our lives where, you know, sometimes it may not be the right thing, but it's the right thing for you at the moment. It's a lot less conflict and it's a lot less problematic if you just abide by it. You know, so there's, you know, I don't know, just be more aware, be more eye-opening to what's going on around you. Well, you don't have a manual hanging off you.
No, you don't. Before we cut this off, there is two more things I wanted to touch on before we end it, because I know we're running out of time here. The first one is self-respect too. We didn't really talk on that one yet, but to me, self-respect is kind of just keeping yourself out of situations that aren't good for you, kind of a thing. Doing something today that your future self is going to look back and thank you for. That's how you respect yourself. You know, respect your dignity. You know, you have value, and treat yourself like you have value. Expect other people to value you, and if they don't, you don't have to stand for that kind of stuff. And the other one, the last one I would say, and feel free to comment on these. The last one, I'm putting them out there because I don't want to forget, by the way. Because I don't want the daring thing doesn't work for me. The other one that popped in my head that I wanted to get out there was, and this to me is the most, gosh, dude, this is the most controversial thing for me that this is probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. Like, if I'm looking back on it, all the work that I've done, the internal work, the hardest one, the one that took the most effort, the one that I even resisted more than any other bit of work that I just didn't want to, I called it. I made up my own thing called the okay practice, right? And I'll get into that in a second. But so what?
Mm-hmm.
That's my other thing. Yeah, we're talking about the interpretation of respect or disrespect. But let's say they did disrespect you. So what?
Yeah.
Like, and like if the worst thing that's ever happened to you in your life is somebody disrespect, if you're 85, 90 years old and you're sitting there talking to grandkids like, Grandma, what's the worst thing that's ever happened? One time back in the early 2000s, somebody disrespected me. Like, you've lived a great life, dude. If that's the worst thing that's happened to you, and that was hard for me to wrap my head around, right? I call it the okay practice. And I've given that as homework to many, many different people. And that is, there was a time in my life where there was somebody I was interacting with. It was an ex, and they would send messages back and forth that would irritate me. It was like a what I felt to be an improper recollection of the facts, right? Like, that's not what happened. That's your interpretation of what happened, but I've got the receipts here. You know what I mean? Like, I know, I got proof that that's not what happened. Um, and there was a moment when I was going back and forth and I was getting worked up, and I haven't been with this person. Like, we're ex, like, you're out of my life. Um, and that was the moment I was like, why do I care? I don't care. If that's the thought that you want to have in your head, I don't even care anymore. Okay. So I just started answering okay to things. Like, okay, that's how you feel. Like, you're a horrible person. Okay. Now what? Like, okay, that's how you feel. Great. I don't need to change it. I don't need to tell you you're wrong. That's your perspective. Okay. I'm going to allow you to have that perspective. And so my point is, for me, that's what's putting in that extremely hard work, is what makes me so calm today when these types of situations arise. Because if I feel disrespected, I can just acknowledge, oh, that stung. I felt like it was disrespectful. Okay, like, and I don't need to do anything about it anymore. I don't need to tell you you're wrong. I don't need to hurt you. I don't need to whatever. Like, I'll explain to you, like very small trivial example. It was with my wife, but yesterday my wife got upset with something. I don't remember what it was, and I think she's stressed out because there's daughters, empty nest syndrome, that kind of stuff. And she made a comment, and I was just like, "Whoa!" And it hurt, man. It stung. But instead of me laying in and whatever, I was just like, I explained to her calmly, like, I don't think that was appropriate. I think that was unnecessary. I was more focused on this, and she, within a couple minutes, she was like, "Yeah, you know what, you're right." And the whole mood of the day changed because I didn't feel the need to, like, drop the hammer, right? But I've learned that through other areas of my life and dealing with that. So the okay practice is by far the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But so what? Like this, like you said with the people driving by, if they yelled out wetback to you, and like, so what? Is it something you liked? No, but you don't have to like it. Is it really going to affect your day? Like, are you going to not get approved for that loan now? Are you not going to be able to, like, eat later on? Is your job going to fire you because somebody yelled something? No, like, there's literally no change in your life whatsoever. So what? Like, who cares?
Right.
Anything you want to say on those two things before we
Yeah.
wrap it up?
The self-respect thing, especially, and the okay practice. My daughter Zoe does it really well. Let me tell you something. When they do it against you, it's really annoying. So that's how you know it works. But the self-respect thing. Here's how you know you're disrespecting yourself is when when you are disturbed by someone else's disrespect towards you, you are not respecting yourself. Because in order to have good self-respect, that's when you don't allow yourself to get frustrated over someone else's views and opinions about you that they're not really personal. They're not as personal as you think. They may be intentionally a little personal, but not personal enough because they don't know you as well as you know you. They don't know the true you that's inside that you wish they would know, so they wouldn't do that. You're disrespecting yourself by allowing yourself to get upset. You're disrespecting yourself by allowing you to then blow off and do things behaviorally or attitudinally that are going to negatively impact your growth, either professionally, personally, or whatever, socially even. And then that's when it's an issue. I think that if you want to respect yourself, you got to stay calm in those kind of situations and let people be the jerks that they are if they're jerky in your opinion. Let them be good people if they're good in your opinion. These are all your opinions. We're just living in your world. Even right now, as you're viewing this and watching this and hearing this, you may not change your mind at all. I don't care how many of these kinds of videos you watch or how many of these things you kind of listen to, these podcasts you listen to. You may not change at all because this is your world and we're just pawns in it. But allow us to be the pawns that you assigned us to be. Now, if you've assigned us to be certain types of pawns or characters that maybe you use to grow a little or to expand your insight, then fantastic. Then you're using us the way we really wish you would use us. We use this to be a platform for you to discuss anything, right, wrong, or indifferent. But if you're using us in your life to express your opinions, your way, the way you view it, then you're incorrectly using us, and then we're going to offend you. And then if we're going to offend you, then you're just going to be upset about us, and you're going to be, oh, those guys are just jerky, because you're using us to express your opinions. But that's what you're for. You're there to express your opinions. You're there to say it the way you would say it. You're there to act the way you would act. That's not our job. Our job is to do it our way. And then if we all collectively just allow each other to be different, then we would find that everybody's respected a little bit better. No hierarchy here. No hierarchy by history. No hierarchy by color. No hierarchy by gender. However you want to refer to me is how you want to refer to me. I'm not going to find it disrespectful. Some people prefer their pronouns. I prefer my adjectives: loud, proud, and passionate. But I'm not expecting you to call me loud, proud, and passionate. Those are the adjectives that I feel like they best represent who I am. But this is, in the reason I bring up pronouns is that's another form of we're trying to push that is respectful to me, so you must do that or else you're being disrespectful to me. No, if you let me know, then now I know. But there's other things other than pronouns. Like I said, adjectives. There's other things that may bother me about height or size or weight, which I find I hear it all the time. But oh, you're so skinny. You might not think that's disrespectful, but if you just go up to someone and say, you're so fat, would that be disrespectful? Well, the word skinny is disrespectful to some people. Or going to some, man, you're so tall. What do how's the weather up there? That might be disrespectful to that tall person. But if they look at you and they go, oh, you're so short, isn't that disrespectful? So again, it's coming from your viewpoint. And your viewpoint is yours and you're allowed to have it. But equally so, I'm allowed to have mine. And again, they're not going to always align with yours. I'm sure they're not always going to align with yours. Why? Because you may be wrong. I may be wrong. And that is okay. It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, I think that's all we got, man. I think that's a perfect way to end it. And I will end it with homework. How about that? Try to do the okay practice. If you listen to this and you find yourself, getting frustrated easily about things, you're feeling very righteous in certain things, practice okay. And I got to put some disclaimers because I had somebody one time who took it to a different direction. They were trying to do it to be rude, or they were trying to do it to win an argument, right? Like, okay,
sarcasm.
Like very sarcastic. And then they went to social media to get validation. That is the opposite of what I'm doing. What I'm talking about is there was a scene in Fight Club where the guy told him to go out there and start a fight and lose. That's what I'm talking about. Like, you need to lose. You need to okay. Yeah. Just okay. Whatever if they're telling you, well, you did this wrong and you're this and you're that, you're a jerk. Well, okay. Because you're not saying I agree with you. You're just you're validating where they're coming from. You're validating. I hear you. I understand you. Okay. That's what you want to say.
You're also saying that I don't have to agree with you, but I don't have to disagree with you.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's hard because if you're anything like I was, you're going to feel the need to tell this person how wrong they are. And you have a whole litany of reasons why. And in those moments, you're not going to change that person's mind. Yeah. It's just not going to happen. The only thing that you're going to accomplish is upsetting yourself. That's it. Because despite what you think, that person doesn't walk away thinking, oh my gosh, they made so many good points. I never thought of it. No, they walk away thinking, see, I told you they were this, that, they're just further, entrenched in their already belief. Right. Yeah. So all that work you put into it, all that effort, all that high blood pressure and emotional and everything else, that's all you accomplished was getting yourself worked up. That's it. They're not going to. So if you just say, okay, they're still going to potentially walk away thinking everything that they were going to think anyways. The only difference is you don't walk away suffering. You don't walk away feeling all that stuff that you just went through, put yourself through. You walk away with just, okay, and go on with your day. So that's the homework I got. And that's all we got for today, man. I think that's it. I think that's enough. So anyways, appreciate y'all. Once again, you can follow us on social media. He is at the Dope Doctor. I am at the Dharma Guy. Together we are at Dope and Dharma. You can find us on we're on now Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the stuff the kids are using these days. Anyways, that's all I got. Now that you know better, do better. Peace.